How staying curious can improve your photography. I'm Justin Lowry, and this is Develop and Process. So in this video, let's brainstorm some ideas to maintain sustainable creativity by staying curious in all areas of life, not just photography. In previous videos, I've talked about how we can stay creatively inspired by looking at other artists' work, at other photographers, and kind of mixing and matching those ideas, remixing those ideas to come up with our own creative ideas. However, I've heard it said that the most creative people are the most interesting people. And if you want to make your photography better, you need to become a more interesting person. And if we flip that around, I think most of us could think of a few people in our lives who are really uninteresting people. And those sorts of people that are uninteresting or uncreative, generally, they tend to not be curious about anything. You probably know somebody in your own life you could probably think of, or maybe it's yourself at certain points in your life, where you get into a rut and you kind of go through a daily grind, a daily routine, and you wake up, you go to work, you do your job, you come home, you eat dinner, maybe you watch some TV, you go to bed, rinse and repeat. And if you never deviate from that, if you never branch out and try new things, experience new things, learn new things, then you're not going to have new content, new ideas, new inspirations to turn into creative ideas. And the human mind is an input-output system. So we cannot expect to come up with creative ideas if we're not putting new ideas into our minds on a constant basis. To help you understand what I'm talking about, I want to walk you through some examples from my own life. Now, before I go into this, I want you to understand that the point here is not for me to talk about my own life, but the point is to give you a case study and help you brainstorm maybe some ideas in your own life for how staying curious could help you in your own creative work. So ever since I was a little kid, I've always been curious about all sorts of things. I've been fascinated by practically everything. And through various points in my life, I've been interested in usually 1 to 3 subjects at a time, and then done deep dives on them, just learned everything I possibly could, read everything I could find on that subject. And at certain points, it was biology, entomology, herpetology, botany, maybe for a while it was Japanese origami, paper cutting sculptures, growing bonsai trees. I studied aeronautical engineering, military history, philosophy, art history, American literature, British literature, theology, spelunking, canyoneering, four-wheel driving, obviously photography, graphic design, web design, computers, networking, programming, app development. The list goes on. Now, what do these things have in common? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They have in common that I was fascinated by them and thought that for a while it would be worth studying them. And many of them I'm still interested in and still study to this day. The idea is that there's just so much out there to be explored in the world and in the intellectual world of just reading and learning. And, in the physical world, that looks like exploring anything from new cities to new countries to new trails to new campsites to new roads. And, for example, one thing that my wife and I like to do is we go and we explore new cities, and we do all this research online, and we learn the best restaurants in that city. And I don't mean like a tourist guide, but I mean we really try and dig up who the foodies are in that city, or what food websites have explored that city, and then we look and try and find the best restaurants and coffee shops in that city, and then we hit them back to back, one after another, as many as possible during, say, the course of a week long trip to the city. And we'll also go and drive a four-wheel drive vehicle or whatever vehicle we have at the time, even a car, even a rental car, and we'll just drive down all these back roads and just explore where they go and just see what's out there. Or we'll look up ideas or talk to locals and just find places to explore. On foot, when I was a little kid, I used to go behind my parents' backyard and just explore these streams and ponds and dirt roads. And I would just explore the dirt road and then go down another dirt road and another dirt road. And then I would go find some woods and hike through the woods and find a pond. And then the pond had a stream and I'd hike up the stream and so on and so forth. And I would just do that all the time. And when it snowed in winter, I used to go snowshoeing through the woods because you could go through all these areas that were overgrown during the summer, but they opened up in the winter. And so I would go snowshoeing and explore all kinds of areas of, hemlock and pine forests and areas that had been completely infested with poison ivy, and explore those. And just being curious about what's out there in your backyard or in your city. It can really lead you places and lead you to creative ideas. And in my case, that led to a deep, passionate interest in and love for nature and the natural world and wildlife and conservation and all that kind of stuff. And then eventually into nature and landscape photography, which is what this channel is about and what I do. And so what I'm trying to say here is that I don't think I would have ever become a landscape photographer if I hadn't gone on all those little outings and excursions as a kid, or if I hadn't gone on all the various hikes growing up or different trips to explore. I wouldn't have seen the world that was out there and gotten passionate about it and studied it. For example, if you watch the My Story video, the very first episode, you'll see that I got into photography by going on a history trip and visiting all these incredible historical sites in the American East Coast, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Richmond, Virginia, and so on. And we explored Gettysburg and Antietam and Williamsburg and Jamestown and Monticello and Mount Vernon and the Capitol and the White House and all this stuff. And just seeing those places and the powerful historical significance of them, and then feeling my own inability to capture them, and then randomly encountering people who were photographing them and doing such a great job, actually led me to want to pursue photography in the first place. If I'd never gone on that trip, if I've never met those people, I might not be a photographer right now. And I just want to kind of encourage you to just be relentlessly curious and constantly filling your mental tank with new ideas and information and inspiration, so that when you want to be creative and create something new, you have the material, the raw ingredients to do that. Now, the flip side of this that I think we see so much of online is where people will just go on social media websites. And I've fallen into this trap myself, where we just kind of go on Instagram or Flickr or Facebook and we're just scrolling through feeds and we're looking for ideas in those feeds. But the problem is, so is everyone else. It's true. That's what everyone else is doing. And so if that's how if you do what everyone else does, you're going to get what everyone else gets. And what everyone else is doing is derivative. They're just looking to other people, and then they're trying to copy what other people are doing to get the results that they got, whether it's likes or follows or subscribers or some kind of attention on social media. That's what they're after, but they're not after exploring the world firsthand, having experiences, learning new things, and then converting all of that into images. One of the things that I hear a lot in landscape photography is everything's already been done, so why even bother trying to be original? Why bother trying to come up with something new? It's all been shot to death. There's nothing new in the world. Every national park, every viewpoint, every trail's been hiked, every photo's been shot, every composition's been done and posted 100 times. That could not be farther from the truth. That is hysterically myopic. That is so short-sighted, narrow-minded, inexperienced. I cannot say enough bad things about that mindset. That is just ridiculous. And I'm able to say that because, well, I've been out in the world. I've seen these places. I've seen places that never have been photographed at all, ever, by anyone. I know that there are millions of places like that. And so there's just so much out there to be photographed and so much out there to be experienced and explored. And if you get this mindset of looking to other people rather than firsthand having experiences, then of course your creative work and your photography isn't going to be very good. Of course it's not going to be very interesting, because you don't have the ingredients to make an interesting dish, so to speak. And so I just hope that you'll understand that if you have more experiences, if you learn more new things, if you're pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone and trying to go out there and experience the world and experience life, that you'll be able to be more creative, because your own mind will just be filled with so many new ideas and so many different diverse experiences and so many new people you've met, that you'll be able to be more creative. And so I just want to encourage you in that way. Another example of how this has played out in my own life is that when I got into landscape photography, I quickly realized that I had to get into overland exploration and hiking and spelunking and canyoneering and mountaineering, all of these outdoor adventure pursuits, just to physically get into the locations I wanted to photograph. And so I pursued becoming excellent at each of those areas and finding people to explore with and learn from that were experts in each of those areas. And one of the things that I discovered was when I started following people who were into exploring, canyoneering, hiking, what I found was that they're posting their trips on their blogs and their YouTube channels and their websites and social media accounts, and the photographers aren't following any of them, or very few. And so by looking to various explorers, adventurers, hikers, I was able to build a sort of mental library of locations to go explore for myself. And especially by looking at local explorers in my area and in a drivable radius of where I live, I was able to find all kinds of amazing stuff to go out and explore and photograph. So, and then as I went out into these places, I began to find slot canyons and caves and cracked dry lake beds that rival those in Death Valley, slot canyons that rival Arizona and Utah. I was able to find, creeks and canyons that are every bit as good as the ones in maybe Washington or Colorado or Oregon. I was able to find truly beautiful sections of coastline that most other photographers hadn't photographed. And, it was just through exploring and developing a craving for, these exploring new places and new experiences and meeting new people that I was able to discover all these photographic locations. So I think, don't necessarily feel that in order to come up with new ideas for photography that you have to look to other photographers. You can look to people in all sorts of different disciplines and walks of life and interests and look to them for inspiration, and then go out and do those things yourself. That brings me to the next point, which is that after I started exploring all these different slot canyons and caves and trails and random washes in the desert, I quickly discovered that you could find stuff on your own. Now, here's what's crazy. They say that there's nothing left to be explored, that we live in the post-frontier era and all of these things, and that you have to go to space to find anything new. I don't believe that that's true. Ironically, we do live in a sort of post-frontier era in the sense that, satellites have explored all of the globe, and that there's a lot we can learn from space, but there's so many places where humans have never even set foot. So, for example, one thing I've liked to do is go on Google Earth and just explore the terrain in random locations and that are accessible to me, and then find stuff that looks like it would be worth exploring in person. And one thing I actually did was I went out and went on Google Earth, and I found I was looking at some slot canyons that I had explored in the desert that were truly beautiful. And I memorized what slot canyons look like from space by studying the terrain, and then started, I realized that they form along washes that drain from desert mountain ranges, and a lot of the time. And so what I decided to do was look at these desert mountain ranges and start exploring down the washes from outer space on Google Earth. And sure enough, I started finding slot canyons that were not named, that had never been photographed, but that I could see from outer space using Google Earth. And so I plotted the GPS points on the map, went out to explore them, and sure enough, found all of these incredible slot canyons, and was able to sort of pioneer, for lack of a better word, some of these canyons, and actually end up naming one of them after my brother, who passed away several years ago. He was my little brother, and and to this day, it's actually named that on Google Maps and Earth and all of that, and on the hiking guides, and that was in 2014. So the idea that you can't accomplish anything new or explore anything new just because we happen to live in the 21st century, I just don't think is true. And so I want you to kind of keep an open mind and, be going out there and exploring and finding new stuff. And then when you do that, your photography is going to improve and you'll become more interesting by being more interested. And so I just hope that helps, and that helps you brainstorm some ideas. Again, I'm not telling you this so that you can go out and copy what I did, or even just say, "Oh, that's cool." Like, no, that's missing the point. The point here is I want to help you guys brainstorm some ideas for yourselves to go out. What's something that you're interested in? Maybe post in the comments below. What's something you what's something you've always wanted to do but have never been brave enough to try? What's an area you've always wanted to explore but have never visited? What's a topic you've always wanted to learn about or study but never have? Look at some of those areas and go do it. Go outside of your comfort zone. Go explore that area. Go read about that topic. Go visit that restaurant or that city, or hike that trail, and go explore that. Maybe it's an experience. I talked to some people last week who I was sharing some of the stories, and they said they've never backpacked at all, but they've always wanted to try it. And so they were asking me about, what does it take to get started? What is the gear I need to buy? What's some good trails to go get started on? And, I was helping them through that. And I was just so excited and encouraged to see that they were opening up to new experiences and wanting to try new things. And so, maybe you want to try backpacking for the first time, or maybe you just, maybe you're a landscape photographer and you want to try street photography, or maybe you're digital and you've never shot film. Maybe you shoot film and, you want to try a different type of film camera or film stock, or maybe even you want to switch back to digital. Who knows? But the idea is, go outside your comfort zone, try new things, be influenced by new sources of inspiration, and you'll never know what'll happen. So that's why I always say at the end of my videos, I'm Justin Lowry. Until next time, stay curious.